Hello. Today's episode of More Influence Impact, we are going to look at the journey of going from engineer to marketing expert to investor and all of the ups and downs and ins and outs that go into creating a successful business and getting to the point where you are actually investing in other businesses and helping them to grow. And so I'm going to bring up my guest, Scott Gabdulin. Hello, Scott.
Hi, Celia. Great to be here.
Yeah, so great to have you. And for everyone who is new to Scott, he is a Canadian entrepreneur, investor, and search marketing expert. He has a proven track record of turning the trickle of prospects into a roaring cascade of business opportunities. That's what everyone wants. Everyone wants more leads, and you've cracked the
Yeah.
code on that.
Yeah, we did our best to learn as much as we could throughout the years, and now we're very well positioned to pretty much generate leads for various different niches and different types of business out there.
Great. And we're going to get into more of that on in our conversation today. And so I always like to start with your journey and what brought you to where you are today. Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah.
A little bit of a long story still being written, but first generation immigrant in Canada, came from Kazakhstan. And as a lot of immigrants do, I kind of picked a career that would have high income potential. And so I went into computer engineering. Did my 5 years in university, got a job at I think it's top 500 advanced micro devices company, and realized along the way that engineering wasn't it. Didn't have passion for it. And I think that a lot of us think that we're not good at something because we're not smart. In
Mhm.
reality, a lot of times we're not passionate about it, so we're not going out of the way to learn. And so I just couldn't do engineering, didn't want to do it, and I started to pick up on various different things along the way, like building websites. And at the time, a very good boss of mine told me, "Hey, you shouldn't do this website; it's too saturated." And that was like 10 years ago or something.
Mhm.
And just imagine what it is now. But that led me on a path of learning more about marketing, digital marketing. I got myself into agencies and kind of built my way all the way from the bottom, and worked for global agencies on big accounts like KPMG, TD, Toyota, and along the way learned data science and analytics. Also went in-house, worked for a software as a service company called Wave Financial, and did a lot of SEO and conversion rate optimization there. And along all of that, also was running my own freelance agency business. And now we have a full-fledged agency called Authority Factors that offers SEO and content marketing services to medium to enterprise level SaaS and e-commerce clients, as well as our own lead generation agency, which works with small businesses. And we also own a portfolio of traditional businesses that we either start our own or invest into via equity, via taking an equity in a business, and a portfolio of about 80 websites that are lead generation and affiliate marketing. So lots going on, but that's just quick 1 minute breakdown of what we're doing and what we're into.
Well, we're going to get more into your current business endeavors. I want to go back to what you were talking about it when you were an engineer and
Yeah.
you weren't passionate about it. Because even when we feel like a lack of passion for something or a lack of motivation for something, that doesn't always drive people to make a change and do something different. So, what about it? Like, how did you know that you needed to change and that you needed to shift into something else? Because you could have just stayed an engineer forever, right? I mean, you may not have been happy,
Yeah.
but like, what was that motivating factor for you to really make that change in your life?
Um, I think I think the fact that I traveled half across the world kind of speaks to the fact that we we took some risks, and I was more or less comfortable with taking a risk in a career change. Obviously, it wasn't nerve wracking. I went from high, what is it, five figures to very low five figures salary, and that was a big risk to take because I
Yeah.
did have responsibilities to my family, to my parents, to also help them come over and have a good life here in Canada. And I just a lot of times I don't really think through the entire thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you just take a risk because you know that if I continue on this path in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, it's highly likely that I'm just not going to be satisfied with it at all. And that internal conflict that I had about something that I know is sure path to kind of more or less comfortable life versus something that is unknown but is highly more satisfactory,
Hmm.
that just went in favor of taking a risk and just jumping into the deep end of it. So
Hmm.
that was really the biggest decision, and I knew that I couldn't be good at engineering. Like, I was okay at it, but I could never be great at it, and that would eat me up as well from inside. So yeah.
So there were multiple factors, but I think
Yeah.
it's so valuable to really highlight that journey for you because we can come into that place at different times in our lives, whether it's in a career or even in our businesses where, entrepreneurs kind of get burned out or they don't love what they're doing anymore. And such, there's such a big piece of that of taking that risk, right? And going for something bigger
For
in
sure.
on our journey.
And you're giving up a lot. I had a very comfortable life. There
Yeah.
was great weekends. You had a lot of times, a lot of free time. You had after 5 p.m. there was a lot of free time there, and to exercise and go out with friends. And the salary was great, but something inside is just always is not right when you know that this is not the path for you. And I've become good over time to just listen to my gut and just follow
Hmm.
it. I know a lot of folks might not believe in it, but I think there is something that is based on your experience and your feelings and who you are that internally does tell you what the right path is. And quite often I'll just try to listen to it and just take that first step in the direction that I'm being told. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going with your gut, your instinct, and really it's
Exactly.
usually like that first thing too. It's when people get into overthinking it that I think that they start to question themselves. But I think when we
Yeah.
start to take action from our gut and then we're like, oh, that worked, or oh, we start to develop that trust within ourselves to listen
Yeah.
to it. Has that been your experience?
100%, 100%, and it's a very dangerous zone to get into when you start to overthink it because you're starting to justify reasons why you shouldn't do something.
Hmm.
So there's just a million reasons. It's a safety net, it's comfort, it's low risk. Very much something that you can count on in terms of career, maybe even what we call a golden parachute for your retirement. Uh, don't overthink it. If there is something earning inside of you, listen to it, give it a try. You don't have to necessarily change careers right away. I changed career before I even had anything sure on the side. And like I said, I do take risks quite a bit. It's just
Hmm.
kind of a pattern, part of the pattern now. But you can take a small step, build it over time. It's just you gotta be very consistent with it. It's important that as soon as you hit a roadblock, you don't just quit and go back into the comfort zone. You continue on building on whatever it is that you feel like is the right thing to do for you and for your career and for your life and your future and your family. But obviously, I was in a different place. I was young and I was in my 20s. There was now I had responsibilities to my parents, but I didn't have yet a family and children and whatnot. It might have been a different calculation now. It would have been
Yeah.
much more difficult to do if once, because I have a family now that is much larger. So
Hmm.
different risks altogether.
And so when you do hit a roadblock, like what would be your advice to other business owners that are, they're on their journey and, challenges coming up, things aren't going
Yeah.
the way that they want them to go. Like, well, I think you actually gave your advice, but let me reframe the question. How do you suggest like flipping the internal narrative on that? In terms of like the self talk, like if there's obstacles and challenges, it doesn't mean like okay, it's time to shut down and close shop
Yeah.
necessarily. Like, how would you advise someone to think about an obstacle, challenge, roadblock differently on their journey?
Okay, I'll take a bit of a long route to answer it, but
Okay.
something that I really got into during university years was psychology. So I like to read psychology books,
Yeah.
just as a side thing, and that kind of got into the marketing and advertising world is because a lot of it
Mm.
is based on psychology of your customers, of your consumers, understanding what people want. And as you read psychology books, if you find the right one, for me, it was Karen Horney. She wrote the book called Neurotic Personality of Our Time. A lot of the theories have been kind of disproven, and psychoanalysis always evolves. But something that I realized while reading is that I was seeing myself in that book, and
Uh-huh.
it kind of flipped the switch, telling me that you're actually not that unique, and therefore, like, there is something unique in each one of us, but we are quite similar. And a lot of those experiences that you have, someone else have had or has is having right now. A lot of the troubles you're going through, a lot of the fears you have, someone else has already had that. So as a result, there's probably a solution to that problem, right?
Mhm.
So we've had a long history of existence on this planet, and so there's probably a book, there's probably a podcast, there are people that you can talk to. So the scariest place you can be as an entrepreneur is to be alone with your own thoughts. You need to
Oh.
get out of that, because your mind will is always in survival mode. It will tell you what not to do in order to make sure that you're not stressed and you are not putting yourself at risk. And so that place is what something that you need to get out of, and pretty much go and find solutions, books and YouTube, if or podcasts like this one, for example. Listen to people who have done it, and they will tell you that they've gone through the same problems before.
Mhm.
Before they hit the success, they've been there. It's always scary. There's always something that will happen that you don't account for. There's going to be points where you're probably running low on money, and you got to get creative. Now,
Mhm.
whether you will figure out a solution to a problem or not will depend on a lot of factors. So quite often it depends on your experiences, right? Do you have experience in sales, for example? Do you have
Mhm.
experience in marketing, at least some, to get creative ideas of how to get yourself out of whatever hole you're in? And so obviously solutions will be different, but there is always a solution. So
Mhm.
I try not to stay too long in my own thoughts in my own mind, and try to find something to listen to and to get me out of that. And quite often, listening to business podcasts like yours, listening to something on YouTube helps me do that, as well as reading books and just kind of taking a little bit of a step away from business, maybe to go and take a walk with the dogs, play
Yeah.
around with your kid. That will help you find a better place to think again.
Yep, yep. I was just on a call yesterday with someone talking about the pattern interrupt. That's what I was
Yeah,
calling, is just kind of breaking out of whatever you're doing to give yourself a
exactly.
break. And sometimes it's as big, yeah, marketing, sales, and sometimes it's like I really just need a break, because I know for
Right.
me, if I go for a nice hike or a long walk, I'll get ideas and I'll
Yeah,
come back. Whereas if I just sat for my at my computer that entire time, I would have just been thinking the same thoughts over and over again.
exactly. Like, people should get dogs.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility, but something you do have to do is walk them twice or three times a day.
Yeah.
And so that is a good pattern interrupt. You get fresh air, and it just helps you come back and be refreshed. And you look at problems at a whole different angle. At least that's the case when I have two big dogs, and so they're my pattern interrupts quite often.
Excellent, excellent. So then let's get into your business journey now. So really, it's like you've got your authority factors where you do your marketing for, what is it, mid-size and larger companies, and then
That's
you
right.
have your lead gen, and then you have your portfolio. So it's like those. It seems like those kind of evolved over time, where you started with one business and then you had two, and now you invest in multiple. Is that kind of how it went for you? Just a natural evolution?
Yeah. So what happens quite often with those who get into marketing, they always start with small businesses, right? Small
Mhm.
businesses have a really big TAM, total addressable market. There's a lot of them, which means that
Yeah.
you can always find clients. And so, but the issue is that when you start offering services to small businesses, that there's always a constraint of budgets, right? Quite
Mhm.
often, small businesses will be in a survival mode. They're trying to figure out how to just pay the bills and put the food on the table. And so when you start working with them, especially on something like search engine optimization, which is organic, rankings on Google, it takes 6 to 12 months just to see results,
Mhm.
and it takes money every month to invest into it. And so I quickly realized that that's not the path we want to take, because it's hard to scale. And as you scale, you get 100 clients, 200, 1,000 clients that are paying you 500, $1,000 a month, but you're getting so many headaches with it, right?
Mhm.
And so we realized that we want to offer services, but we want to offer them to bigger clients, medium to enterprise, where they understand the value of marketing already. They have budgets, they have a proven product, they have some kind of internal teams that can handle the volume of leads coming through, and they are much more patient. And so as a result, we focused our Authority Factors agency on that particular segment of the market. But we knew that we didn't want to give up on small businesses. So what do
Mhm.
small businesses want? They do want to build a brand, but when it comes to survival mode, they want to get a phone call, right?
Yep.
So we realized that, hey, why don't we don't bother with small business websites? We don't want to touch them. We'll set up our own properties, our own landing pages, our own websites. All that has to do is a phone call has to go to the end business, the actual small business owner. They pick up, and it's up to them to close the actual leads that's coming through. And that was a solution that we really like to work with, is because it's now a productized service. It's still a service,
Yeah.
but we just sell it in batches. So someone comes to us and they'll be like, hey, I want to buy 10, 20, 100, 500 leads, just because it will help them go from zero to, let's say, 200 $250,000 a year. And we have
Mhm.
businesses that have done that with us in the last 2 to 3 years. They've gone from literally almost zero to $250,000 in revenue, and they're happy. Now what
Mhm.
naturally will happen once you get to a point where you are at 200 250,000 is that you're now thinking, what if Scott doesn't, he has a heart attack tomorrow? What if he doesn't wake up tomorrow? Where am I getting all these leads for? Now I have 2 contractors, 3 contractors. I've got, a loan on equipment, all that stuff. I got to figure things out. I got to build my own
Yeah.
brand. And so that's when you naturally go into the conversation. Hey, Scott, can you do services for us? And we don't.
Mhm.
And so quite often we'll tell them, keep buying the leads and while you're building your own brand, which is what you should always do. You should
Mhm.
always build a brand. If you can do it early on and you've got skills for it, fantastic. You're ahead of the curve. But most businesses don't. They're great plumbers, they're great electricians, they're just not comfortable with YouTube. It
Yeah.
took me a long time to become comfortable with video. But once they get to a certain point where they have money, they can relax. They know that there's people that can handle the workload. There's family taken care of. They can start to focus more on, let me experiment with freelancers, agencies. Some will mess it up. I'll hire someone else. They can afford to lose some of that money, but find the right solution to build a brand. And that's when we'll offer them something like an equity deal. And we'll
Mhm.
say, hey, you know what? You can go and figure this out on your own, finding agencies to work with, or you've worked with us, you know what we're capable of. Why don't we just build a brand with you being part of the business? If your
Mhm.
business doesn't grow, we don't make any money. If your business grows, we all make money. So we have vested interest in being part of that growth and actually investing into the business. And what we have done is that we have a team built on Authority Factors that does content, that does, let's say, PR, digital PR. And so all we do is just take this new business, plug it into our systems, and now we're producing websites, we're producing content, we're trying to get PR done for that business owner, build the entire brand up, and scale it from there, right? So we've done that with our own businesses as well. My wife has a yoga business. We've scaled that to mid 6 figures, and it was done all from scratch. We have 3D printing business where we quote for $10,000-$15,000 in in invoices and whatnot, which is done from scratch. So we understand what small business process is like because we
Yeah.
have gone that path. We're not just digital folks. We actually have built our own businesses, and a lot of small businesses appreciate that, as they understand that, and they reach out and they're like, "Hey, Scott, listen to one of your interviews, and you sound like you know what you're doing." They
Mhm.
feel like we understand their pains, which we do. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You've been there. You've had that journey and successfully, scaled companies. So, and with the providing the services and the website and all of that, that only comes when you become an equity partner in the company, in those small businesses.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a content team that does content writing for clients. That's
Mhm.
also kind of part of Authority Factor. So if someone wants to
Mhm.
buy content, we'll always sell it. But when we become part of the business, there is no cost. So because this is just sweat equity for us, we don't charge for anything.
Mhm.
The only thing that business would have to pay that we're part of now is basically pay for, let's say, Google ads to Google, right? Facebook
Mhm.
ads to Facebook. There's hard costs that we do not inherit. We don't pay to
Yeah.
vendors, but anything we can do in house is essentially complementary to our partnership.
Yes. And how many businesses do you have now in your portfolio?
I think we're getting close to a dozen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's growing. It depends on how you count it because we also have partnerships on digital businesses. Like we
Okay.
have a website, 3dgearzone.com, that's a purely review of 3D printers and 3D equipment and accessories. So there's a digital portfolio, there's traditional portfolio, but yeah, it's fairly good size.
And do you have a goal? Like, do you see yourself getting to a certain point, or do you just evaluate the opportunities as they arise?
uh, the goal, it's kind of similar to what Cody Sanchez does. I think we want to build a portfolio of small businesses, but our goal is not to build a portfolio where we own these businesses forever, right? We
Mhm.
don't want to really create a lifestyle kind of a whole portfolio there. We do talk to business owners who we partner up with the goal of exiting in 5 years or so. So either that can be a business owner buying us out, or we all together exit by selling it to a larger company. So a lot of times we'll try to get into the niches where we know acquisitions are happening. So
Mhm.
lawn care is great, landscaping is great, tree services is fantastic because bigger brands, bigger players in the market are acquiring smaller ones for the book of business as well as for whatever digital footprint that they have. So there is quite a bit of value in building up a standard operating procedures, building up a process that could easily be moved into someone else's business. It was the goal of exiting for us. So that's kind of the goal that we have.
Mhm.
But in terms of how many businesses we want to have in a portfolio, we don't really have a number yet. I think we're
Mhm.
just trying to scale and see how it goes from there.
Mhm. And you touched on SOPs, and
Yeah,
so I wanted to just open the discussion about you've got multiple projects going on.
yeah,
So, and our listeners and viewers are scaling and always looking at opening up new income streams. And so, who supports you, right? Because obviously you have team in the various divisions of your companies,
yeah.
but are you the one that's sort of like managing all of it and the CEO of everything, or what does that look like in terms of support, especially
Yeah.
between these different projects?
So So when it comes to partnering up with businesses, I always look for businesses that have very strong operators. That's key.
Mhm.
Okay. So they're the CEO of the business, and
Mhm.
we know. So you know how quite often business entrepreneurs and on YouTube they will be focus on one thing, focus on one business, right? So I don't know if I'm ADHD or whatnot, but I like many businesses, but I focus on one thing, which is marketing.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, is that we focus on one thing, and we always tell businesses we'll bring marketing into your business, right?
Yeah.
That's what we'll do. CRMs and reactivation campaigns, all that stuff, but it's all part of marketing. So the key to partnering up and scaling is to find somebody who is strong in what you are not strong at. In our case, let's say sales for a particular niche, we don't know that niche, we're not good
Mhm.
at it, right? That business owner is good at it. Doing actual plumbing or electrical work, they're good at it. So in that regard, CEO handles quite a bit. We just take a percentage where its responsibility is primarily marketing, PR, and stuff like that, building a brand as a result. Now, when it comes to what we bring in as marketing kind of services or packages, yes, I have a team. My team is highly what do you call it? It's overseas. So I
Mhm.
build a lot with Philippines. We're looking right now in Latin America for perhaps for sales. We're trying to figure out how to. I'm not a sales expert, right? So maybe that's where you could give us some advice. But we
Mhm.
are looking at how do we substitute the business owner answering phone calls and having somebody who will answer phone calls and get close rates that are high and get those leads fully kind of onboarded or sold and whatnot. So that's what we're looking at. But my team handles content. I have editors, I have writers, there is PR team. It's a bit of a new service, so when I start something new, I like to be in the weeds of it, so
Mhm.
everyone reports to me. I get as much feedback as I can, and then what I do next is I'll find a person who is great for the job, because now I know exactly what kind of skills they have to have. I think a
Mhm.
lot of business owners rush too much in trying to outsource everything. I
Yep.
think you have to be in the weeds at the beginning to figure out how it works and what the
Yep.
pain points are in order to be efficient in finding the right people to put in place to do the job. So
Mhm.
that's the way that I approach it, and that's working really well for us. And so far, it's been great. Yeah,
I agree with that approach, especially knowing enough to be able to communicate like
yeah,
this is how I want the work done. And then I just reached a point where I brought in a new team member because I'm like I don't have the capacity to learn like a new expertise. So I
yeah,
know enough to get them started, put them in the right direction, and then they can help me build. But I think that that's so important of really knowing enough about the job and the role and what needs to happen, and also the time commitment too. Like
that's
if
right.
we're doing something that's out of our zone of genius and we're kind of slow at it, but we know it takes us 5 hours a week.
Hmm.
Okay, bringing someone in that is competent or excellent genius at this, it could take them 3 hours a week or it could take them five. So it also helps with, when we're bringing on kind of what that budget is for the hire and how much time per day per week is needed.
Yeah, and a bit of a on a sideline, something that I've noticed is that quite often, if someone is looking to outsource overseas, they will be all about how do I track their hours? How do I make sure
Yeah,
that they're doing what I told them for 8 hours? And I never understood that concept. One, when you're tracking someone's hours, that means you have to check, and that's just more stress for you. It's like
right.
they didn't do 8, they did 3.5. What's going on? Like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So what I do with my teams is often I will tell them, here's the quality I expect, and here's the quantity I expect of that quality and
Hmm.
of the output. As long as that's hit on weekly or monthly or daily basis, I don't care how many hours you spend. If
Right.
you're, like you said, if you're they're genius at it and they did it in 6 hours instead of 8, what do I care? I got exactly what we agreed on. There's a contract. We
Hmm.
agreed to this, and I paid them exactly what uh, they wanted and what I promised, and I feel good because I'm treating them right. Now, if I was trying to squeeze every minute out of them the way traditional corporate environment works, I think that would be unfair because
Hmm.
instead, what I should be doing is, listen, it seems like you've got more time. What if we up that pay and we up the quantity? The quality still has to be high, but the quantity goes up. And now I'm treating them right. And so that environment is something that helps me to retain my folks, at least knock on
Hmm.
the wood. It's been great so far. And they're happy. They really like working. And you want people who like working with you
Yeah.
because they feel like you care about them. You give them holidays, you give them paydays, you give them weekends, and the output of the work is just much better. There's no stress for you, there's no stress for them, and everybody's doing what they love.
Yes, yes, I really appreciate that, the reframe around
Yeah,
the dollars for hours mindset, and
yeah,
I totally agree. And there's what's called the efficiency trap or the productivity trap, where
yeah,
people that are super productive and highly effective will get more and more work put on them because they're so fast at it, but then they don't necessarily get a pay increase or
no,
anything like that. So I appreciate that reframe around that, really looking at the talent and the the measurements that you have in terms of quality and quantity of output.
that's right. Yes.
Great, great. I feel like we could probably have a whole other episode on like company culture and some of those
Yeah.
things that you started to touch on. So Scott, where is the best place for people to connect with you and get to know you more, follow your journey? You're a marketer, so I'm sure you're putting out content somewhere.
Yeah, if you Google my name, it's a little bit difficult, but Scott Gabdulin, uh, pretty much I think the only one in the world with that name. So I'll be the
Uh-huh.
first result, the only result on the page. You'll see my website, scottgabdulin.com, where I do have, all, this podcast, this episode will be listed there, as well as other episode, as well as information about the businesses that I run. And from there, it can take you into the rest of the network and portfolio, and you can learn about me from there, including my social media links.
Okay, perfect. So we'll drive everybody to scottgabdulin.com. They can connect with you via your website and find all of your different social channels. Very good marketing strategy. Take them to one place.
Yes, it's a hub, and then it goes from
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. They can choose your own adventure from there.
Yes, that's right.
Well, thanks so much today for your insight and your expertise, Scott. I know I got a lot out of the conversation, and I know our listeners and viewers will as well. So be sure to follow Scott, connect with him on his website. And thanks for listening and tuning in to More Influence and Impact. We will see you next time. Bye.